Hi Dima, welcome to Gaming on Phone online conference, and
Hello.
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hello. Nice to meet you. I'm really happy to be here and glad that attendees had a chance to come here and listen to our conversation and maybe ask some additional questions on top of it.
Yeah, so we'll have the conversation in a way that we'll try to understand the topic per se in specific, and then we'll go down to taking on the all the questions after like 10 to 15 minutes down the line, right? Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah,
sure.
hi everyone, welcome to our fireside chat on a topic that's pivotal to the success of gaming industry, and that is the role of user acquisition in achieving sustainable growth for games. I'm Shakib, your host for this insightful discussion, and I'm thrilled to have each of you here today. User acquisition is a cornerstone of game development, and understanding its significance is crucial for driving sustainable growth in the highly competitive landscape. So, without further ado, let's dive into the engaging conversation with our expert from Gamelight, Dima. And please join me in welcoming Dima, the user acquisition manager from Gamelight, who brings a wealth of expertise and insights to our discussion. Okay, so let's delve deep into it. So, Dima, can you please start explaining what user acquisition is and why it's crucial for achieving sustainable growth in the gaming industry?
Yeah, I would agree with the words you've started with. So, user acquisition is currently a vital part of free to play, especially free to play gaming business, because when the industry was just starting, most of the downloads were coming from organic sources, and there was a huge flow of users generated by stores themselves. But as far as the market became very saturated, and as far as I know, for now, there are more than half of the million gaming apps in, for example, the Play Store. So this field becomes very competitive. And you can not only rely on store as a sole provider of users for your game or app, you should acquire them and invest into marketing. But I would say that user acquisition is always a part of success of certain game or product. Because if you have a solid product with solid monetization and great retention, and you're adding user acquisition on top of it, you are getting high success in terms of business. So I would count for it as a kind of overall picture.
Yeah. So, following up on your insights, what are some effective user acquisition strategies for game like that game developers and publishers can employ to attract new players to their game?
Um, yeah, this is a topic which probably each and every single company and developer should have a very clear answer, because for Gamelight as a user acquisition manager, so I am acquiring users to use our apps and engage into our platform. And for me, the main question usually comes to a point that we need to acquire them on a very high scale by maintaining certain KPIs that we have on place. So for me, it's always a question how to sustain a big enough publisher mix and deliver
Okay.
as much users as we need. But when it comes to other players, they could probably benefit from Gamelight more than I am, because despite the fact we are in the top three of AppsFlyer Gaming Index and we are
Right.
one of the biggest traffic suppliers, unfortunately, me as a party who is engaging users to the platform, I cannot use it because I'm acquiring users here. So my best advice for parties will be to reach our business development team and ask how could they leverage the possibilities of acquiring users through Gamelight.
Yeah. Perfect. So, talking more about the strategies, I mean, what all metrics should the game developers focus on to ensure a positive ROI in their game?
I think that each developer, again, defines a specific set of metrics for themselves. Because, for example, if we are speaking about the ROAS particularly, so usually you have specific indicators which are coming before it. So, including the retention, reaching specific events in the game, or maybe specific progression. So, the better the understanding of each particular product, the better results in the end of the day will be for the user acquisition side. So I would say definitely the ROAS is a primary indicator, because as far as you're investing money to the game, you should take them back. But for many specific titles, you may have a lot of exceptions. So for some multiplayer games, you might benefit more from a higher user base, which will feed your high value players who need to kind of to defeat someone, who need to acquire someone's castle, etc. So this is a question like of a bigger economy of the game.
Yeah, so you mentioned about acquiring new users. So how important is it to retain existing players for sustainable growth?
I would say it's a kind of vital part. So again, if we speak about the user acquisition, so user acquisition should balance. If we're speaking about the growth and sustainable development of the game, to sustain the game, you need to cover the users who churned from the game with the newly come users. So if you are not covering this churn rate with the actual user acquisition, you will have a lot of issues. The less users you lose in the kind of in the process of users getting to the game, the easier for you will be to grow. But again, it's just a question of specific games economy.
Right. So, Dima, we have few questions coming up, and I will request our delegates to also mention their companies if they can, and so that Dima can give you a better answer with regards to a specific target your company and how they can do what they do, user acquisition and everything, monetization strategies. So please also mention if it is possible your company's detail. So Dima, you must be, you can see the
Yes, I
comments.
see
Yeah,
the
if you
question.
can, yeah,
So will we count, will we cover them one by one, or will
sure.
we pick up specific ones? So, okay,
Yeah,
from the questions which I see, so the first one is, how do you balance short-term gains in user acquisition with the need of sustainable growth and maintaining a loyal player base over the time? So again,
right,
I assume we kind of slightly cover this topic with the previous question, but
right,
again, the loyal player base usually gives you a higher return if you're speaking about users who are playing for long in your game, and they are spending and they are very passionate about the game itself. So here comes the retention. So unfortunately, when we're speaking about products where users can live for years, so they're very far from specifically from user acquisition. But here may come re-engagement topics. So how to bring some users who churned to the game, how to, for example, upsell them some new products if they didn't see them in the game from other channels. But again, so this is the streamline. So you should understand how your users live inside the game and which metrics should they achieve to make them a like high value player in the end, or like in a year, in a 6 months, etc. So every specific app knows their funnel. And for example, if we're acquiring user whose retention is like twice lower than usual, so most likely the cohort's lifetime value will be lower as well, and vice versa. Let's
yeah.
move to the
So
next.
we have, yeah, second question. Yeah, right.
Can you share some strategies for effective user acquisition? I think this question really relies a lot on the company size, because for like very small developer, yeah, in the chat we don't have like additional information, but we're getting new messages.
Right, right. Yeah, we,
Again, for the small company, I would say that you need to think about the budget you can allocate first, and then you need to choose partners which will fit to these budget requirements. So this is kind of the pretty obvious strategy, as I would say. And the second one will be to, again, to discover the specific events and their relation to a lifetime value of users, because most of current mm, traffic sources, they require optimization events to adjust their algorithms too. So this would be like two strategies: define your budget and which partners fit into the bucket, and make sure you have enough understanding of particular events which you are promoting. Let's move to the next question. Or you have
Sure,
at least
sure.
some points to ask additionally?
Yeah, yeah. So in addition to that, we were having a conversation. So, I had one more question to ask. How do you, as Gamelight in general, measure the effectiveness of user acquisition campaigns that you run for all the companies, be it small scale or mid scale or large scale? So, can categorize the answer in three parts?
Do you mean for our partners or for our apps
Right,
specifically?
right. Your partners. How you measure the effectiveness of the campaigns that you run, the UA campaign that you run. So, how do
Okay,
you measure those?
probably this question I would not be able to respond as far as
Okay.
I'm acquiring users to the platform. So I'm not optimizing campaigns for the partners, and these questions are probably better to be discussed directly with the account manager who will be responsible for handling particular accounts. But I can give like a general overview of acquisition like into your app.
Sure, sure, no worries. So, we have been seeing that GameLight has been expanding globally with each passing months. So, I just wanted to know what, like, when you're expanding to new markets, be it Asia, Europe, or North America, or MENA region for that matter, you can take any region. When you're expanding to new markets, how important is localization in the UA effort, the user acquisition efforts that you put in?
I'm a big fan of approach when you are making the creatives, which are in most cases do not require the localization themselves. So if you are speaking about the games in particular, so if you have a rich enough gameplay, which will speak about the game without any particular words, you will benefit from it a lot. So you will not need, in most cases, to add some specific translation to your text, to your videos. You will not need to make something very crafted. But again, if you're
Right.
speaking about specific markets, definitely you need to make the adjustments based on your gameplay, based on your, mm, let's call it a cultural strategy. But it really depends on the scale. So if you're a smaller company and you have good gameplay, which is speaking for itself, so maybe for the first steps, you will not even need to make a kind of very deep localization. So you will check if your product is sustainable in particular markets, and then decide how much are you ready to invest in this localization. Usually, this is the biggest question. So not only to localize, but to make sure that this localization will be effective for your specific type. So I would say that act first, check results, and then invest. Because in many cases, I seen that, for example, companies are investing a lot into localizing their assets when they essentially cannot afford it for themselves. So it's better to get
Yeah.
first results and clarify if it will work in advance in future.
Perfect, perfect. So I have a last question, and that this question is based out of my curiosity. I thought of asking at the last because just to see if the time permits. So if you go down the memory lane 15, 20 years down the line, we used to have very fewer games those time, and what games we used to play depended upon word of mouth, publicity and all. So someone is playing, they used to suggest you can play this game and that game. There were nothing much of advertisement and all. Like I'm talking about uh, 20 to early 2000, right? So So I'm just curious and wanted to understand what are the advantages and disadvantages of having organic user acquisition, like I mentioned, compared to the paid user acquisition that we see nowadays.
Again, if we're speaking about specifically free-to-play market, again, on my estimates, so it's hard to define a very specific number, like how many users is this or that title acquiring organically. But I would say that the organic users are mostly distributed through the top players on the market. So like top 10 per chart, or maybe like top 50 games for the store, and all the other parties are getting really minor flow of users. And with the new titles which are launching, it's getting harder and harder to get users organically, unless you are not trying to compete in this like big players market. So unless you're trying to compete for the first charts in certain categories or in gaming overall. If you are not going to play in this highly competitive field, probably you should be rather prepared for a very tough and like business related thing, so that you will need to invest into user acquisition. You potentially could have some flow of organic users like on top of your user acquisition efforts, but it's better to consider it as a kind of margin, or maybe like a bonus from store for their fee and charges that they're taking from you. But to make a game which will rely only on organics from scratch, it's extremely risky. So you could acquire some maybe like 50 to 100 users a day easily. But when you would like to sustain it on like tens of hundreds or thousand users a day, the strategy may be slightly unpredictable. Again, there are many exceptions which we can speak about, but in any of them, I don't know, like Genshin Impact, you will see a massive UA budget standing behind, so who helped them to acquire pretty high volume of users, and then a lot of users began to make promotion, like word of mouth or maybe some content creation. So this is a kind of thing that mm, you have very low control over, especially for games which are not require like social interaction, or which have a trivial gameplay. So, for example, players can easily record their gameplay in some tough games or games with very rich gameplay, but you will barely find a lot of videos who are grabbing major attention for hyper casual or casual games. So you should be very realistic about it. So when you are thinking about the organics and the word of mouth, so it will be more applicable again, as I mentioned, for the social related titles when users are interacting, I don't know, making clans, making some competitions, etc., or can create the user generated content, which potentially might be viral. But when we are speaking about titles which are more casual with a simple gameplay, so most likely people will play it, but they will not share a lot about it. It's just like a casual thing is that you are doing in a queue or while you commute to work, but it's not a kind of high commitment thingy that you will share to the public.
Okay, perfect. So, based on my curiosity again, we have a lot of small to mid-level game developers, publishers attending our conference today. So, what would be your like, if I ask your 2 cents on how can the game developers leverage community building and engagement to support their UA efforts? I mean, if they at all wants to. So what role do these forums, online forums, do play, including social media and also the influencers, so to say? What all role do they play? Do these play?
Again, from my experience, I cannot say that um, so, that community building is playing a vital role in user acquisition. Again, with the exception for title which are based on social interaction.
Right.
So if we're speaking about sole player games, so casual, probably it will not give major effect for players. But if we speak about them, some titles which are relying on social interaction, or the games where you can potentially make user generated content, so it can be a sort of mutually beneficial cooperation when you hire someone like some specific mm, content creator who will speak about your game, and you will reuse it in user acquisition. But again, this is very trivial case. In some cases, it's very helpful when you monitor your community and you can grab some very rich and juicy moments, some nice gameplay captures. But again, in many cases, they're limiting you with the quality, with some additional things. So it's nice to have, but it's very hard to align these two streams, because user acquisition in most cases will act a bit independently from community management. So they can benefit, but they are not always like super aligned.
Okay, perfect. So, uh, so I also want to ask you another question. So, and that is, we have a lot of seasonal events across the globe. I mean, within in each of the markets. So, how can the developers leverage the seasonal events? I mean, the holidays, so to say, or special occasions that happen uh, in a day-to-day or in a week or in a monthly basis across the country. Obviously, all the seasons or all the holidays vary and are different from each other. So, how can a developer leverage these special occasions?
I would say that again, depending on scale. So if you're a small one, so probably you should not focus on some specific events and just try to find the best performing creative and channel which you might acquire. If you are as a bigger developer and you already have an opportunity to create some seasonal thingies, so probably you should focus either on long lasting events, so the ones that people are either preparing for a while, or it's kind of like a Christmas. So this is a period so which you need to participate, or you have a very strong correlation to some particular events. So, for example, your game has a lot of in common, I don't know, with the Independence Day, a lot of in common with some particular date. But if you are just trying to catch up with any occasion, so in most cases, it will not give you major benefits in user acquisition. So it's just like a hit or miss. So you're creating a specific asset for a specific holiday, but you have no warranty that it will work in the best way. But at the same time, you can invest more of your time into your ongoing kind of creating strategy and testing hypotheses or iterations in some order. So that will be the general overview.
Okay, thank you, Dima. Thanks a lot. And that's it for the fireside chat with the Dima, UA manager from Gamelight. Thank you, Rima, for having for giving you our precious time at Gaming on Phone Conference Online. And for all the viewers, so I just want to inform you that Gamelight also has a virtual booth at GPC Online, so you can hop on to the virtual booth as well and connect with Gamelight's representative if at all you have any such requirements or so. That's it for now. Thank you, and you can hop on to the next session. Thank you, Rima.
Yeah, have a
Have a
nice
nice
day.
day.
Bye bye.